And welcome to another episode of the Investor Financing Podcast. I have a really special guest today. I mean, pretty much you need a business plan for your life and everything. So I'm going to welcome Cherie. And Cherie has been writing business plans since 2009.
So I often tell people you have to take it from the other person's point of view. They either worked hard for their money or they worked hard to raise it and put it into a fund. Why should they give it to you versus every other option that's out there? And you have to consider that getting money is very competitive. Getting money is very competitive, and you have to be at the top 1% of the people that are pitching, in order to even be taken seriously.
Welcome to the Investor Financing Podcast, where we interview real estate investors and lenders so you can learn all the secrets to getting your projects funded and scale your portfolio. And now, your host, Bo Eckstein.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Investor Financing Podcast. I have a really special guest today and a very relevant topic, as we're always talking about financing. We're always talking about how to get the money. Well, there's a big part that kind of goes in before it should really come to me. And that's really having a well-written business plan, especially on the SBA loans, the real estate development loans. I mean, pretty much you need a business plan for your life and everything. So I'm going to welcome Cherie. And Cherie has been writing business plans since 2009. Her mother ran a bookkeeping company and wanted a business loan to expand her company. And that's kind of what got you interested in the whole business plan, how to do it. And then you started researching SBA, Google, you went on Amazon, and you were just trying to figure out how to put this all together. And then you figured it out. You were able to get capital for your mother. And you started to do this for a business because you kind of dialed in on this. Then you wrote a book called Creating Business Plans to Actually Get Financed. Yeah. There it is. Perfect. And so since 2012, you've been, on doing podcasts, you've been speaking on stage, you've been doing all this stuff, trying to educate all of us on how to write business plans. So thank you for joining us. And I just want to kind of dive in with you and just, kind of start with if you could kind of go back to when you got started writing the business plans, how you kind of put the information together. And there's a lot of information to research. I'm sure you spent a lot of time figuring this all out. And now then kind of fast forward to today of like what your business looks like, what kind of avatar or customer you can help. I'm sure it's a pretty general base, but do you have a preference on who you help and work with?
Yeah, you asked a lot of questions in there. So
I know, that's too many.
I'm going to start from the beginning, though. So hello, everybody. My name is Cheree Warwick. I'm on YouTube at Cherie, the business plan writer. And I always say it's like my Cherie or more. But I actually was kind of forced into writing the business plan for my mother in the family business. And when I started doing research, well, first, you do what normal people do. You go to, Google, put in business plan templates, and you get a whole bunch of templates. And I'm reading through these things, and nobody's telling me exactly what the bank is looking for within the business plan. All they say is mission, vision, put your P&L or your profit and loss here. But they don't really tell me, when the reader is looking at it, what are they looking for to say yes or no? So that was what really caused me to kind of do the deep dive and go down the rabbit holes. And at the time, there weren't a lot of people talking about this and educating this. And in a way, there still isn't, because I'm surprised how many people come to me and they don't know this information. But yes, I did put together what I could. I showed it to a mentor of mine, and the bank said it was one of the, he told me to tweak a couple of things and give it to the bank. And the bank said it was one of the best business plans they had ever read. So I didn't know it was a thing. But my mother, in typical fashion, starts telling everybody, look at what my daughter did. She wrote this business plan, and people started asking me, will you write my business plan for me? And one of the interesting things, Bo, is that A business plan helps you craft your pitch. I'm sure you get people all the time who come to you and you say, okay, you got me on the phone, you got me here, tell me about your business. And they get stuck. Or they take 20 minutes to explain something that really should have been chiseled down into a 60 to 90-second pitch. Number two is your business plan helps you really determine your business model. How is this company going to make money? Yes, some of the businesses are simpler if you're starting a restaurant, right? But oftentimes I talk to people who it's not quite that simple, and you got to figure out how does the business make money, and then what are the financials going to look like as well. So I can kind of break all of those down. But you did ask me about my avatar as well, so I don't want to forget that. So let me go there. Who needs a business plan? I would say everyone needs a business plan. However, everyone doesn't need a 30-page business plan, and nobody needs a 100-page business plan. So you can kind of let that out of your mind right now. I typically tell people that most people, if you're not raising money, you can get away with a 2 to 3-page plan that just has some simple key elements in it. And I use mine, for example, just to kind of make sure that I'm on pace to where I want to be in the next quarter, in the next year, in the next 5 years. If you are seeking an investor, like an angel investor, and you know the people, typically 5 to 7 pages you can get away with. If you don't know the angel investor, I'd say typically 7 to 10 pages, but that's still kind of more like an executive summary. If you're going after traditional bank financing, I typically suggest anywhere from 15 to 25 pages in a business plan. Go ahead.
And so can you, so it sounds like you customize, you have different kind of packages. So for example, like some of my clients are real estate syndicators. So they go out and raise money. They don't need to raise money from the bank per se, but from individuals. So they need maybe a 10-page or a 10-slide, PowerPoint type.
Right.
So it sounds like you can do all of this, and you have different kind of formulas for each.
Yes. I have different formulas for each. And that goes back to when I originally got started, trying to figure out what they were actually looking for. And over time, I've spoken with hundreds of bankers. I've spoken with, I don't know, probably 100 to 150 angel investors. When I say spoken, I mean conversations that last at least 15 to 30 minutes, where they give me a deep dive into what their thoughts are. And yes, so for somebody, for example, like real estate, if you're raising, let's say $20 million, I actually had a client that did that. Sometimes you want 1 to 2 page introduction that you're able to send to people. And that is used to get the person to agree to a meeting. So I have to kind of educate sometimes my clients on you can't necessarily close the deal right away. Sometimes you send something to get somebody to say yes to a meeting. So a 1 to 2 pager would be great for that. And then once you get into the meeting, you could have a 10-page slide deck, or you could have a 5-page executive summary that answers the things that, of course, I'm going to talk about what goes into the business plan. But every business plan needs to answer the same 6 questions, right? And then you would also, for raising $20 million, let's say, you also want to have some detailed financial forecast. I can't tell you how many people have come to me and they want to do a build out. For example, I have a gentleman that I'm working with now who's in Vegas, and he wants to do this build out. He's got all of this stuff that he wants to do for this 19,000 square foot building. And I said, okay, show me your quotes from your general contractors. And he looked at me like, what are you talking about? And I said, someone's not going to give you $13 million without you having quotes from 3 general contractors that are going to say, this is what it's going to take to actually build this thing, right? So I often tell people you have to take it from the other person's point of view. They either worked hard for their money or they worked hard to raise it and put it into a fund. Why should they give it to you versus every other option that's out there? And you have to consider that getting money is very competitive. I'm sure, Bo, you tell people this all the time. I don't know how many people you speak with, but I'm sure it's hundreds, if not thousands of people a year. Getting money is very competitive, and you have to be at the top 1% of the people that are pitching, in order to even be taken seriously. So
it's so what I'm hearing you say really is that what's good about what you do is it sounds like you are a really good copywriter, right? You can write good copy, meaning you can write a 1 or 2 page kind of sales document, and essentially so you have to be a good copywriter, but you also have the analytical side where you can, the bookkeeping side for mom, right? And those are such 2 important skills. So you package those together and help in many different avenues. You actually will put together you'll build in little spreadsheets in these business plans. You'll do it all. So you're very analytical, obviously, unlike myself, even though I'm in the loan business. That's why I was like, I got to reach out to you and introduce myself, because part of this podcasting, not only are we, hopefully educating lots of people that watch this or listen to this in the future, but it's also for selfish reasons for myself why I do it, because I'm always learning, right? And then I'm always building new contacts. Now I know when I have a personal project, or I could reach out to you, or even when I have clients, my thought process was, when I have clients that, they have a great project, they got a great track record, but they need to put it together. I'm not the person that's going to do it. I want somebody like you, where I can make a warm referral and say, here, connect and exchange ideas, because a lot of people need your skill set. And I guess, obviously, that's why you started a business from it, and it's been doing well for you. So it sounds like from a real estate perspective, from a startup, non-real estate startup, obviously SBA could be real estate related, but a lot of the times it's a SBA 7A, and it's just a business request. Maybe they're buying a franchise, right? They still need a business plan. It was interesting. I talked to a lady the other day who found me on YouTube, and she's like, and I'm like, yeah, you need a business plan. And this was just a perfect example. It's like, I don't have the patience to help, and nor could I do it. This is why they seek out people like yourself. And that's why I wanted to bring you on the shows, because she needs to connect with you, because this is I get this question all the time, right? Like, how do I start? And it really starts from talk to a financing guy, talk to somebody that can do a business plan for you, or work with you, because that's gonna internalize and you're gonna work out a lot of the issues that you don't even think about right now, right? Because it's step by step by step. Now, what's your process for getting the information? Because a lot of people that are entrepreneurial are just not good at the detail. So how do you get that without pulling your hair out, right? How do you get that information from them? I mean, obviously, some people are probably way easier to work with, but I'm just kind of like, what's the formula to get good results as the client? And do you have a questionnaire, or is it more of do you like to meet online and just take notes? How's the best way to do this?
So that's a great question. So one of the things I do is I meet people where they are. And the first thing I do is I have a 15-minute conversation with a prospect or somebody who's thinking about writing a business plan. And I ask them questions such as, I actually have an intake form where I ask them, the general questions: your name, what type of business are you in, how much are you looking to raise, how did you come up with that number? I also like to know people's story. Tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you get into this business? How long have you been in this industry, et cetera? And then if we decide to work together, I have a business plan questionnaire, but I customize it for people. So I customize it for the industry. I customize it based on what they told me in the 15 minutes that I spoke with them versus the holes that I have that I need in order to begin the process. I also understand that sometimes people will tell me, I don't know the answer to that. And then at that point, I ask, okay, is it something that my team and I can research, Or is it something that you as a client need to go and get? For example, the gentleman who's building out the 19,000 square foot building, I can't create, the financial, what do you call it, the quote for that. He has to go to a real GC. But I like to find out from people how they want to communicate the information. So I'll send them the questionnaire. Some people respond back in email. They will write notes, detailed notes answering the questions. Some people will say, you know what, Cherie, I do better with a phone call with you or a Zoom call with you where I can just talk it out. I'm okay with either way. I'm able to, sometimes with the phone calls, you're also able to go back and forth as well and help people flush out their business models. Because I don't know, Bo, how it works with you, but I do have a lot of people who come to me, they are starting up, but they don't really have things flushed out yet. So sometimes I'm more of a business coach than I am a business plan writer.
I was just going to say that. Like, it's actually, you're doing not just the business plan, you're actually coaching people through the process, right? Because a lot of people, like the call yesterday, for example, it was like she wanted to start this business and she has the desire, she picked out a franchise, and yet, then it's like, okay, she was at the point where she was going to sign a franchise agreement and had to put a deposit down at like $15,000.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wait a second. You need to first, spend a little bit of money up front. First of all, you should, get a third-party review of the franchise, right? There's these companies that do these studies on these, and get that, right? Spend a little, if it costs you $100 or $200 before you make a big investment. Yes. Next, before you dive in, is put the, deposit down for this franchise. Make sure the financing, generally is in line with what you think it's going to be. And then, obviously the third big piece is you need a business plan to make yourself financeable, because if you go in to a lender, an SBA lender, they want a resume, they want a business plan, they want the franchise agreement, they want to see the numbers of your forecasts, right? And you can grab a lot of that off the franchise, from the franchise, because they've done a lot of them. But what she really needs to do is do this step first.
For your own. Yeah.
Spend the money first. And then the time she goes through this activity with you, she's either going to, one, really want to move forward, or two, say, you know what, I'm going to explore other franchises because this doesn't really fit with what I want. Mm-hmm. And so it's interesting. Yeah. I'm on the financing side, as I was telling you earlier, but I went down the rabbit hole and I met with a franchise brokerage company. Essentially, they recruit people to do, and because I'm fascinated with business.
Me too. I love watching different YouTube videos about different types of businesses and things like that. But go ahead.
Yeah. So I went down the whole rabbit hole and I learned the whole kind of the broker side of what these franchise brokers do and all the tools out there and all the stuff. But really, now that I kind of see the pieces, they wanted me to be one of their brokers, right? Obviously, because I'm a good salesperson and I work with a lot of business owners. Mm-hmm. And so at some point I might incorporate that in my business, because really what I like to do the most is marketing and consultation, as far as the financing side goes and the marketing component. And then I definitely see an alliance with you where I can bring you into a lot of these specific, because I'm a natural connector, right? And when I hear somebody, I'm like, listen, let's not reinvent the wheel. Just let's go with the path of least resistance and talk to an expert that deals with this particular niche. And this is cool that we're just going for it. All right, so let's go back to you. Yeah.
I wanted to piggyback off of something that you said. So one of my first clients was a gentleman who was going to buy a business in North Carolina, and we were in Virginia at the time. And he was prepared to pay 6 figures for this business and put his house on the line. But before he did that, he came to me because he thought he was going to get funding to help him buy this business. So he needed a business plan naturally. So as we are speaking with the, and he was a smart gentleman, he had done some due diligence. So, but as he and I started speaking with the owners of the business, we began to notice more holes, more holes. I was asking questions that he had not thought of. And because of that, he decided not to buy the business. And when he sent me the email saying, Cherie, after the last conversation, we had like 3 conversations with him. He said, Cherie, because of you, you saved my home. Because he decided not to buy that business, because if he had bought that business, it would have been a bad investment. So he said, the money that I spent on you was worth it because it saved my home. And he was married, he had kids, all of that. So, sometimes paying somebody to help you do a little more upfront research can oftentimes help you save tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. And this is not self-serving. This is, you can choose to go to whomever you wish for this, but sometimes speaking with a couple of other people and say, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? That are business minded, that understand dollars, cents, markets, things like that, in order to give you some different perspectives is very important.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's the whole thing. Like, let's just say, look at it like from this standpoint, somebody's buying a home,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they say, oh, I'm going to waive my appraisal. Oh, I'm going to waive my home inspection and my termite report, right?
Mm-hmm.
What happens when you buy that house and you think, oh, the house was just built 5 or 6 years ago, and then you end up closing and buying this house, and you're just because it looks like it's in perfect shape. Then, you move in and you find all these problems with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you always, I'm also a real estate broker. So I always say, listen, just for peace of mind, even though, you're spending this much money on the inspections, and even myself, and I've rehabbed tons of houses, I would not buy a house. 95% of every house I bought, I got an inspection. There was only just a few circumstances. So you always want a third set of eyes on whatever you're doing, right? Because they're gonna troubleshoot from a different perspective than you. Because a lot of times we get emotionally attached and we want this franchise. We're like, in our mind, this is the best business ever. But it's like, even like yesterday, going back to this conversation, I said, well, you should go to Franchise Grade or one of these companies, is see how many franchises they started, how many, like the franchise or the company itself, how many people have closed their shop, right? All these things she didn't think about doing. And I said, did you speak to any other franchises similar to this, just to see what their model looks like? Just even if you're sold on this because you like the product yourself, look at, and she hadn't done any of it. And it's like, okay, you're going to go and spend 30 or 40 grand for, your licensing fees and everything. And you haven't done these steps, right? So it's very interesting. So let's kind of dive in now a little bit deeper, like on how in the weeds do you get on are you actually doing like some light pro formas for these customers too, like on their financial models? What's the easiest way to build out there's a lot of unknowns. So how do we forecast that in a business plan, like these unknowns?
Well, I'd like to actually start with the 6 parts to an investable business plan, and then talk about how I, especially with the financials, how I put that together. So there are 6 parts to an investable business plan. The first is the market opportunity. So and this is whether it's a bank, an investor, your spouse you're trying to sell, yourself, but what is the market opportunity? How many people are in that market? How big is the market? How much of the market can you really capture? And I will say this, banks and investors hate it when you say, this industry is $1 trillion, and if we could just get 1%, we're going to be gazillionaires. Like, no. It is much better to say, we analyzed our core demographic target market for the problem that we're solving. There are 19 million people in the United States that have this problem, and our goal is to convert 20 of them at $500 a year. That makes us an X million-dollar company, right? When you say something like that, when you're super crisp like that, all of a sudden the person says, wow, I'm dealing with somebody who really knows what they're doing, right? The other thing they're asking themselves is 19 million potential people in the target demographic, do I really believe they can get 20,000? The answer from just the topical level is yes. You're not trying to say we're going to get 20% of the marketplace. The only people that do that is Facebook and Google, right? But most other businesses, you want to be as conservative as possible with how much of the market you're going to capture. So that's part one. Part two is the marketing plan. So let's say, again, you said we're going to capture 20,000 people within this market. How? What is your marketing plan? In other words, how do you intend to get customers? How do you intend to convert them? How do you intend to keep them coming back over and over again, depending on your business model? Or in Bo's case, I would say for somebody like him, how do you intend to get referrals, like building a referral network? So that would be people coming back to him over and over again, referring additional people to him, right? So that's part two. Part three is your team. Your team, why are the people that you've selected for this team, why are they qualified to help the business get to the next milestone? It's not enough to say that the person was your childhood friend. That's nice. But you're borrowing money to get to the next milestone in your business. And how do the people on your team help you get there? Okay. Number four is your competition and your competitive advantages. So you want to look at not only your direct competitors, but how are people solving the problem right now? And what is your competitive advantage? What are you going to do differently? And please, investors and bankers hate it when you say we have the best customer service, because everybody says that. What does that mean? I'm actually working with a client right now who does custom woodwork. And he says, Cherie, my competitors do not call people back. I call people back same day. That is customer service, but that's not saying we have great customer service. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense to everybody.
It does. You're being specific and you're not generalizing. Yeah. And yeah, I agree. Like when I get a loan request on my desk, it's just like, I hate it when it's not concise. It's like they send me like 40 pages, but yet like I can't understand. I think the opening kind of couple paragraphs should be very like, here, this is what we're doing. And a lot of people just put a bunch of crap together and send it to you. And they think just because it's 30 pages and there's some pictures on it that it's going to be, but it's like a lot of people don't have much time and patience to read 30 pages unless your opening gets them engaged and is very concise. And I think it's important how you're clarifying, making these general comments, which everybody says, and people, as soon as they read it, they're just like, all right, pass, right? Like in their mind, they're already passing because it's not done well. I love it. Right. Thank you.
Right. So I told you the first four. The fifth one is your financials. So a bank wants to make sure within your financials that you are able to make payroll, you're able to buy inventory, you're able to pay rent, you're able to pay your own personal bills, and you still have enough money to pay them their bank loan payment every single month. This is something that the templates do not tell you. And when I started digging, my mentor was the one that told me that. He's like, Cherie, this is what they're looking for in the financial section of your business plan. Investors are looking for two different things. Number one is, are you going to need additional money in the future? It's okay if you do. You just need to be able to tell them, we've got a raise today. We're going to do another raise in 2 years. No, we should not run out of cash between that time. We should not have to come back to you and ask you for more money. So they're scared you're going to run out of money and you're going to come back to them before the set period of time when you're supposed to come back, or that you are going to have a major hiccup in some aspect of your financials. So that's really what investors are looking for. So I'll give you a great example from Bo in your line of work. If you are talking to somebody and they want $20 million for a construction project, the investors are looking to make sure that you are not going to run out of money before that building is erected and before you get a tenant in there or whatever you're trying to do. So I try to explain that to people who are, doing small fix and flips all the way up to my gentleman in Vegas who's doing a $13 million renovation and everybody in between. But that's what your numbers need to say, as well as the financial assumptions. How did you come up with the revenue numbers? How did you come up with the expense numbers? Anytime I have what I call a material cost and expenses, meaning that it's a big construction job or you're hiring an expensive person to be on your team, you want to either have some backup with regards to how you got that number, like quotes, or you go to salary.com, or you go someplace and say, I'm not pulling this number out of my butt. Okay. And then the final thing is just for investors. So this is part 6 is, how do I get my money back? What's your exit plan? Are you going to sell the business? Are you going to do an IPO? Are you going to refinance? And I put that in quotes, refinance it into a bank loan. And refinancing things into a bank loan is not like a house refinance. So you have to have a strategy around it from the very beginning. But how do your investors get their money back, and when can they expect their money back? So those are the 6 parts to an investable business plan that I work with for my clients.
That's awesome. I love it. And does it, in your book that you wrote, does it kind of outline this too? If somebody wanted
the book is all about that. So those are the different chapters, and we go through a lot more detail with regards to how to put your numbers together, questions you want to answer. There's all sorts of information in there, and it's a light read. So I say somebody can read it by the fireside or the poolside, depending on what time of year it is. But it's a light read, but it gets you in the head of the people with the money.
So what are you working on now with your business? Like, what do you have? Are you kind of growing it? Are you just, what's kind of the vision? I guess I'm trying to get at, because I see you're very good at explaining the business, and you're getting in front of people. And what's the goal with the business?
So it's very funny you mentioned that because for years I had intended to stay small, be a little boutique firm. But because of the quality of work that I've done, I'm starting to get noticed by some major people. And I have some interesting opportunities on the table. So I have decided to grow the business. Which is very painful, let me say. But I'm investing in some infrastructure, some internal computer software. I'm investing in a team in order to help us write more of these business plans. And it wouldn't surprise me in the next few years if we're writing, I would say 400 to 600, maybe even 700 business plans a year for my clients. And right now I do about 30 to 50. So, but we're probably going to expand, but I want to expand yet keep the same quality that I have right now. So that's what we're working on.
All right. So are you excited to kind of, when coronavirus, slows down a little bit more, to get back out there? Do you like doing like in-person presentations and get in front on a stage and getting in front of a lot of people? Does that excite you, or?
No. I mean, okay. So yes, I like networking. And I'm not shy with getting up in front of people, but I find that I like talking to people in a lot of different avenues and venues, and speaking in front of crowds is one way, but also speaking in Zoom webinars, and also, helping that person who 3 o'clock in the morning, they downloaded a template, they're frustrated, and they, look in Google and look up business plan writer and find my videos and say, thank you, you gave me some of the clarity that I needed. Can you help me with this project? So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the next business plan that I do, I'm definitely going to outsource that to you, because it just,
thank you.
Like, I think people just got to do, like, I would be completely frustrated like we were just talking about, right? Like if I could find an easier way to get a better product, right? Like at the end of the day, I don't care how it gets done. I just want it to be done in a way that I can go out and raise the capital. I mean, that's at the end of the day. Like I've done some kind of like small business plans. I've had my friend who's a good writer help, but you know, I see the value, right? Like if I can send a 5 or 7 page plan to somebody and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm buying these houses and I'm fixing them up and I'm looking for investors. And then, you know, once I get the tenant in, I'm going to refinance and you get your money back. And this is what it's going to look like for you. And I'll recycle your money and I'll grow your wealth alongside mine, you know, and be able to show people like that, because there's a ton of money out there right now. Right. And so if these real estate investors, who a lot of real estate investors are watching the show, you know, if it's not us, somebody else is going to be raising that money and growing their wealth. And so why not us, right? And this is kind of the point of, yes, this show is about financing and investors, but I want to show people like how things really get done, right? It's by having a good business plan, you know, raising the capital. I mean, if you're a real estate investor, just think about it. If you had a good business plan, you could go talk to your local regional or bank or local community bank or credit union, and you give them a really good business plan with some of your past projects, you know, what those returns look like, and you bring it to a banker and it's very concise. You're right, because they're more relationship than the big banks like Wells Fargo and things like. They're still local banks, and I get deals done with local banks for my clients. That's how I know. Like I just did a 20-unit acquisition of a 20-unit multifamily property in Nashville, and that was like me finding. That's kind of what my niche is too, is I find like local banks and different things to work with, because there's thousands of banks out there, but the problem is that you have to turn over a lot of rocks to find the right bank.
Right.
But if you kind of want to streamline and pierce that, it's like, if you had a good business plan, and like, I know if I get a very detailed loan request, right? Like here's my comps, here's the comparable sales, here's the construction budget. It's like, okay, this is a done deal. He or she just answered my questions very quickly. I think people just need to do that. And even in my business, when I'm packaging up a loan request to send it to these different banks for SBA financing or HUD financing, it's like a lot of times I'm doing a really crappy job, and I'll call myself out for that. If I were to just take, you know, the time to put, like, even like if it's a big loan request, like a $20 million deal, and I'm going to make a good amount of money by financing it. Wouldn't I be better off outsourcing something like that to you to do? And like, then I'm not frustrated. I get a really good loan request summary, and right, like there's another business model for you right there. Like, hey, could we create like a streamlined version to put together?
You've given me an idea then for another revenue stream. I will say a couple of things though to you, Bo. Number one is, one of my client success stories is a woman who lives in the DC area, military, but she has a partner in Alabama. And she came to me about 3 years ago and said, you know, my partner and I have done a couple of deals, but now we want to go to a local bank and get a line of credit. Well, fast forward a couple of months ago, she emails me and says, thank you so much, Cherie. Because of your business plan, we got, I think it was a $200,000 line of credit, and now they have a $2 million in assets. Thank you so much. And then she sent me a referral. And, you know, it's like stuff like that like I'm jumping up and down like, yes, you know, my client did it. The other thing that people may not recognize is that when you have a relationship with the banker and you have provided them with strong information with regards to the financials and the business and yourself, the banker is able to go to the underwriter and fight for your loan. A lot of people don't know that. Underwriters don't know who you are. They just make decisions based on, let's say there's something on your credit, for example, that they're like, oh, we don't know if we want to do this loan because XYZ is on the person's credit. The banker is the one, if you have a good enough relationship with them, you've given them a solid business plan and a solid business loan package, they go into the meeting. Sometimes these small banks do have weekly meetings where they review all of the loans as a committee. And that banker can say, no, 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 you want to approve Bo's loan, and here are the 5 reasons why. So that's why I knew a banker once that said, every business has a bank, but every business needs a banker. And I keep up with that saying all the time, because it's true. Let's say Bo. If Bo calls his banker, you don't want the banker to say, can I get your account number, please? And what's the last 4 digits of your social security number? No, you want the banker who says, Bo, hey, how you doing? How are your kids? What's going on? You ran that marathon last week. How did it go? Because that is a relationship. And then when you need something, you're not on the outside trying to figure out how to get in. So, that's my rant. I could talk a lot more about the mindsets of people with money and some of the things that you want to do in order to set yourself up to win. Because really, that's the game.
Yeah, you're so right about that. It's really, and there's all these different programs that people don't know about, right? It's really kind of putting all the pieces together. It's the guy or girl down the street that's ultra successful is that they're just making little tweaks from what every other person's doing, right? So it's like, we need to figure out these little tweaks that can change the game for us, right? And that's, it's about finding the right money partners, really. I mean, most of everything, unfortunately, is revolving around, getting the money and leveraging the money in the correct way, right? Because I watch my friend, he buys apartment buildings and he raises money. He's a syndicator. Mm-hmm. And it's like, he's not the best real estate investor out there. He's not finding the best deals, but what he's really good at doing is raising money. And when you can raise money and you're finding decent deals, you're going to be successful. And so it's like, my mindset was like, I'm doing these little deals and I might know just as much or more than this guy, but his mindset is I'm raising millions of dollars. Right. And so it's just a total different mindset. And then, he sells the sizzle. He puts together his PPS, private placement memorandum, when he does these syndications, and he sends them out. Here's my track record. I've done 30 of these syndications now. So, takeaways for me is like, we gotta put our wins and put it all on paper, essentially, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of me doing it and doing a mediocre job, I send it to a professional where they're going to kind of extract everything for me and put it into language that's appealing to a banker from a financial modeling system. You got to talk banker talk, right? Like, even though I'm in lending as a broker, I'm not a stuffy banker. So I got to learn, not that all bankers are stuffy, but bankers are all about checking the boxes. Does it check the box, right? And that's what we want to accomplish at the end of the day. And that's what the business plans do. That's very exciting. Next time I'd love to have you on again, where we kind of walk through maybe a case study of a business plan. I don't know how we would do it, but we could share some slides and just show, this is, I think people out here, or they're going to see it, watch this in the future or listen to this. It'd be great for them to kind of to see this, right? See this come to fruition. But yeah, it was a really amazing to get to know you, and that's the power of Zoom. And it's great. Any kind of last thoughts you have, and also on those thoughts, please let us know where we can find you online, the best places for that, and all that good stuff.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for listening to today's podcast. And to find me, I'm at wewritebusinessplans.com. That's my website, wewritebusinessplans.com. My phone number, office line, so I don't get text here, but office line is 443-412-5082. And I work with people nationwide. I work with a lot of different industries, and we can start off with a 15-minute conversation, no charge, learn more about your project. And then from there, if you determine that I'm the best person to help you, I love helping entrepreneurs win. I really do.
Thank you so much. This has been really fun. I love bringing on, because I haven't interviewed anybody on this subject before. And so when I found you, right, so it's good. Like the power of Google, guys, like it is relevant in YouTube and things like that. We're able today in today's world, things are at your fingertips. Like you can contact Cherie, right? Like you could, like how I found you, right? And then I'm like, oh, and then I researched it and I go, wow, she knows what she's talking about. I'd love to interview her, right? So I'm actually, as a podcast host, I'm going and seeking experts because I know people watching and listening to this need to hear this. I think this is kind of like eye-opening for people like, oh, I don't have to like fight this and try to like, because I've done that whole thing. Oh, let's try to look for a business plan template. It's not going to get you anywhere. And I know for me, that makes me mad and it makes me want to just not write the business plan at all, versus like, what if we could actually create an amazing experience where you now have a work of art that's going to help you get money. And that's why
not only get money, but inspire people to come on your team, because it can inspire people to come on your team, could inspire people to become customers of yours. It could inspire people to become referral partners, etc. And it inspires you on some of those days when you don't feel like you're making it, you're not hitting your goals. I go back to my business plan, like I said, once a quarter, and I just kind of look and gauge and say, oh yeah, I did say I was going to do that. I need to, reinstitute that into my marketing or all sorts of stuff. So it's very useful.
So I'm sure the majority of your business plans are for financing or financials, but
so actually there are a few reasons. Most are for funding, some are for immigration visas, some of them are for government certification. So right now I'm working on one for a client that is an 8A government certification, are certified with the government to do business. And then some people just need them for strategy as well.
So it doesn't have to be, the point is if you're like a real estate a broker and you wanted to grow a sales team of other agents, you could write a business plan and help you. It's really kind of, a business plan is a guide, right? It's essentially a guide, a checklist of things that you can circle back with. It's kind of like documenting your goals almost, but in a strategic manner where there's the path to reaching those goals.
Mm-hmm. So I want to go back to the real estate broker example, and I know I'm over time here, but I talked about recruiting. So why should that real estate broker work with your company versus all of the other companies and brokerages out there, especially if you're going after A players? Being able to tell them in 60 to 90 seconds, this is why you want to come to work with me, and then being able to give them a 5 to 7 page document saying, this is our roadmap, this is where we're going. I can't tell you how many people have agreed to do projects with me, help me, give me free consulting because I had things written down or I was able to articulate certain things so that they would say, I like her, I want to help her, she's really going places. So,
Love it. Well, thank you so much. This was really fun. I love to have you on more frequently, and I think this is powerful for people to hear this. I know right now it's with COVID too, right? A lot of people that are W-2 employees, they're like, okay, how do I start my side hustle? How do I, or maybe you're very successful, but you want to take it to the next level, right? There's all these different people. I might get somebody buying their first rental property for $50,000 or $100,000, call me, or I might get somebody that's, buying a $10 million building and they're going to spend another $15 million in renovations. It just all depends. But I think it really kind of this kind of conversation just inspires so many people to take action. Right now is the time to kind of like if you're working from home, you just look at it as kind of a fortunate thing for you, right? Like imagine not having to go back to your office because you launched your business. And I'm seeing that more and more and more, even before COVID, right? There's a whole push to this whole solopreneur or growing your own business. That's how many, I'm getting a lot of calls right now from people like, okay, I want to start a business. they're looking at franchises, they're looking at buying existing businesses because all these mom and pops need to sell their businesses, right?
Yes, they do. That's a huge thing. Yeah.
And the beauty thing about that is you talk about seller financing, right? Like some of these sellers, they're like, we want to retire and we want this business to stay in business and it's our legacy, but and they're willing to seller finance it. And if you had a good business plan that you could present about you and like what you've done with your life, those sellers are gonna be way more inclined to seller finance it versus, you don't have any materials and there's nothing to present. So I think that's another huge opportunity for you too, and for business people. I see a lot of my friends that are very successful and they're buying business right now. They're buying these mom and pop businesses that are successful.
And then you even consolidate them. I've seen people do that. I have a friend who that's what he does. He buys businesses that are like, but that can share clientele or things like that, but they're like sister companies. And then he consolidates them and makes them one big company. Or he is consolidating them, making them one big company.
That's happening all the time. I had a friend that had an audio video company for years, his own brand, and he just got bought and he was positioning himself to do that. So you're seeing a lot of that merger and acquisition type stuff.
The M&A.
Yeah. So it's very interesting. Well, anyways, we can keep on going. Anyways, thank you for listening. I appreciate you all, and we'll see you on the next episode. I'll put all the show notes down below so you can get a hold of us, and thank you again for watching.
Thank you. Thanks, Bo.
Thanks for listening to the Investor Financing Podcast. For show notes and useful resources, please visit investorfinancingpodcast.com. For questions or comments, email info@investorfinancingpodcast.com. If you enjoy our show, please share it with your network. Until next time.